So I wonder, Paul, it's 7:01. So before I actually get into the meat of the discussion, as a few more people are logging in, do you have any key things you needed to tell them about? Any, dates or anything like that, or no?
I don't think so, but I do have a nice picture of the George R. Brown Convention Center here, the big long white building in Houston.
Wow.
And like every time I talk to my person,
hotel right here, hotel right here, hotel right here, hotel right here, and hotel right here surrounding this park. So
Okay.
it's a nice spot.
Should we take over, right?
This one over here, the Marriott, has this lazy river and a pool that's shaped like Texas.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's connected directly to the convention center. So is this one, the Hilton. It's connected directly, and so yeah. And then I think they all have pools. I know this one here is the Embassy Suites. It has a pool too. So
Wow.
it's a nice spot. And over here is where the baseball team plays, and just out of view here behind the Hilton is where the Toyota Center, where the basketball team plays.
Wow.
The Rockets. So
Nice.
that's all I got, John.
No, that was great. Way to segue right in there, Paul. William, are you able to put the agenda up, or do you need me to?
Sure, I'll share the screen here as long as you've allowed me to. Let's see here. There we go. Get that a little bigger.
Yeah, there you go. So as he's getting the agenda ready, there's quite a bit of stuff to talk about. So I know I want to leave as much time open as possible for Q&A. And again, I want to thank you. Some of you are doing double duty. You were on meetings earlier tonight, and here you are again. So thanks again for that. Basically, it's a bit of a seasonal chat right now. We're going to talk a bit about the Houston World Champs, reviewing the competition framework, and answering any questions that you might have about anything related to FRC, so to speak. So please feel free to jump in at any time. This would be nice if it was as informal as possible. And we're going to do our best to provide you with the information you need at this point, what we know, and what we don't know. We'll get back to you with what we don't know. The first point there, I just thought I would let you know, talking to Frank today, he said he's going to be releasing a blog soon that's specifically related to the Houston Champs. So maybe he'll tell some more details in there, but you probably are going to get more details tonight. And that's hopefully where we're at here. So regarding COVID protocols for the World Championships, did raise that question today on our conference call with headquarters. And they're very aware of it, and they know that they need to still do some more work, but they're putting the measures in place. One interesting piece that did come up, and again, I don't really want to stir up a conversation about this, but it just lets you know that we are going beyond Ontario and pushing headquarters to make sure that all events are safe for everyone. So Paul asked a really good question this morning in one of our staff meetings, or yesterday, and it was around the World Champs and the protocol. And what about for volunteers? So many of you may know, for example, Paul works for volunteer sign-in registration desk, and there's a lot of people that he's exposed to. So they're saying they'll be coming out with more guidelines, more detailed guidelines, and you can be sure that the minimum expectations are going to be met for sure, from mask wearing and so on. The irony is Houston, which is in Texas, has a law that says you can't force anybody to wear a mask. So how does that work? Apparently you're okay if you're running the event, managing the event like we are, that you can put your own rules in place. And if there are any questions about the COVID, please put them in the chat box and we'll make sure we get back to them. We have some of our task force members on with us tonight, including none other than Mr. Dave Ellis. I can unofficially confirm probably the main question you've all wondered is how many teams will get to go to Houston. It looks like the proportional amount, meaning how many teams we had before versus now. So we have 121 teams currently in Ontario. When headquarters takes a snapshot of that secured team number of 121, if 10 teams drop tomorrow, that could affect us with our spots to Worlds. But basically, the key number that you're waiting for is about 17 teams. So if you think about it, that's about half of what we typically send to the World Championships. So all those teams that are qualifying for points to go to the World Champs, 17 will leave our district champs at the Paramount Center, getting set for the Houston Champs. Of course, all 17 may not want to go, so we'll just move down that list accordingly to see who the next person is that would like to go. And we'll give you more details about how those teams acquire the points, what are all the intricate details on that going forward. Okay. William's doing double duty. He's taking some notes for us too at the same time, so thank you, William. If you could scroll down a bit more, that's it, great. One of the topics that's come up about Houston is the hotels. Is you just saw Paul was giving us a good look at the different hotels around the area, and of course there's many more hotels. Apparently Houston is has a fair amount of hotels per capita, so we theoretically shouldn't have a problem getting hotels. That said, what do you as a team do in terms of booking hotels going forward? I will give you some more key pieces around that, but what I can tell you is that if you book hotels, like a block booking through the system, typically there's a release date of approximately April 16th. Now, that should tell you that that's at the last day of our district champs. So how do you even know if you're going and you want to release the hotels, and how does all that work? So apparently there's a bit of a penalty for a late release. Say you were letting them go on the 17th, but headquarters is trying to negotiate that down so that there'd be minimal penalties, if any.
This has to appeal, right?
I'm sorry? Maybe that was not a question. So that's where we are with hotels for the champs. Now, you'll see a little bit later in the conversation, we'll tell you a little bit more internally what we're doing in Ontario to see how we can try to help facilitate acquiring hotel rooms and what that might look like going forward. Team travel, you know, some teams have sent me their costs right now for going to Houston compared to Detroit. We know it's large. Headquarters knows it's large. They have looked into the airlines to see if any kind of a deal could be had or what have you. That is not looking promising. And to be quite honest, I didn't expect it would be promising in the first place. It's just too large of an issue for headquarters to be able to solve. One thing though, Frank is going to look into is it possible that he could ask the airlines to give, you know, 10 seats per team or 15 seats per team at a set rate up to, you know, so many days.
I asked you to, but I'm doing it now.
So, for example, if you waited until you qualified.
Well, I'm doing it now. Because I'm doing it.
Karen, could I ask you if you could mute?
Sorry.
Thank you. So potentially there could be a little bit of a, you know, some work done around the hotel flights. If in fact you're flying, you may not be flying, but again, I wouldn't hold out for that. More to that will be coming, and I'm sure Frank would update in his blog. And at the same time, as soon as we know anything new, we're going to put it out there for you. And maybe one of the things we should do is start to have a running log in Ontario for Houston that we could put updates on it all the time, and you could sign in at any time and be able to have that new information at a notice. Okay, and we'll just wait for you to scroll down there, William. Robot transportation. So this is in particular from the Paramount Center, which is in Mississauga. You know, the large arena where we've held the tournament for the last many years. What we're going to do is we're actually going to have a truck there. Teams would be required to bring robot crates to the Paramount Center, just like we did in the old days. We'll give you more details about what the setup looks like inside the venue with those robot crates going forward. But you would have.
We were talking about it.
Oh,
You guys, is there a way to do a meet all kind of?
You're the host, so you're the only one that can do it. If you designate someone else as co-host, they could do it while you're talking too.
Yeah.
Let me do that. I'm gonna designate Paul to be the police person.
Thank you, John.
Notice I didn't say police MAN, I said person. I'm making Paul the host, so there he goes. Paul's the host. Thanks, Paul. And thank you, Matt, for that tip there. It's always nice to see everybody trying to help the older fellow, me. So where were we? Yeah, so crates. So robot crates, you know the details on robot crates that you have to follow. Those are very stringent. We're trying to come up with a way to help you take your robot tools and some equipment in addition to the crate. So what you might call a supplemental crate. We don't know what that looks like, but obviously that means if 17 robots are being packed at the Paramount Center, 17 additional crates might need to be had to go with them. So we might provide the additional crates to our teams just to help them. Keep in mind, the one caveat with that is once your stuff gets to the championship inside the building, the unionized workers that move the robot crates, if your robot crate is over the set amount, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So you'd have to make sure you pay attention to the rules, but more details on that later. My purpose of telling you about the robot transportation is just to alleviate any concerns that the robot is guaranteed to be there on time for the Houston Champs. The truck will depart probably on the Sunday. It's possible it could be late Saturday night from the Paramount Center and make its way down to the United States. And that truck is going to be sponsored by Centerline, who, as you know, is one of the large partners that we have that does so much for First Canada. Everybody's robot that wants the robot on that truck will be on that truck. It's controlled by Centerline in First Ontario, not United States, not headquarters, not FedEx. So that truck is going straight there. It's going to unload there. And I'll give you more information down the road, whether or not your robots will come back on that truck or it'll just come back via FedEx. It likely could be FedEx, which means you might get the robot a month later or a week later, something like that. Key tip here is that teams can make their own decision to take their own robot to the World Championships. Again, a caveat with that is you've got to encounter the border crossing and customs, which we can't help you with at that point in time. We can help you with understanding the key paperwork before you go, for sure. But once you take that robot crate, it's beyond our control. The other piece with that is once you get there, you'll obviously have to go into that lineup to unload the team equipment and so on. And that might work out for all of you. It might actually work out to have the robot just go on the truck and you take all your extra stuff down separately when you go. However, I don't want to mislead you. Those that need extra time to rebuild your robot after district champs in the 1 or 2 days you might have, if your idea or strategy is to take the robot back to your school, to your team, work on it for a day and a half, and then take it yourself to the champs, then whatever works for you is we're gonna make sure we accommodate that. I'm going to give an invite out to anybody who would like to form a small committee to participate in looking up ideas and ways to make this a better experience for Ontario teams going to the champs. So we typically do a Slack group. We try to share a few strategies and ideas on how to save costs and so on. So that's going to be even more important this year. So maybe by assembling a committee, You can look at ways of how we could be better at that. And at the same time, communicate it out to the teams that if somebody's got a good idea on how to save those costs, let's share it with everybody so everybody benefits and we make Ontario a stronger team. So that's the Houston Champs. I'm going to pause for a minute and just see if there are any questions around that. I've given you lots of information with that before we segue into the district events.
John, the centerline truck, will it all be maybe possible to arrange to have it come back for us?
If that is possible, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you speak, could you be kind enough to say your name and where you're from, like what team, just so that everybody knows?
Oh, sorry. Hi, Anthony Koziel, Team 1305. We did Calgary with the second crate for all of our gear. So.
And I mean,
well.
about Calgary though, Anthony, was you didn't really run into the issue of the union like you do, like Shepherd is what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So they're looking for every opportunity to make extra profit, I guess. Any
Yeah,
other?
I was just going to suggest now that if we can get Centerline to flip us back, then because I think there's room for 42, 44 pallets, give or take the size of the truck. So.
Yeah, there isn't a problem with Centerline doing that. We've already got that semi worked out with them. The other issue is the returning the robots by FedEx is 100% zero work for us and free for the teams. So we'll just see. I mean, obviously we're going to do everything we can, and if it works better for all of our teams, if we have a truck ready and waiting, then that's what we'll do. And I guess the other thing I forgot about is the secondary crates. I don't know where FedEx would sit with that in terms of right now, you know, they give us one shipment each way for one crate. So we shall see. Good question though, Anthony, or comment.
Hi, John. It's Lee Awad from 772. How are you?
Good, you?
Good, thanks. I'm just curious, maybe you're going to get to this, but I'm just curious what other school boards are saying about travel at all. Like, is this even going to happen? I know currently, if like even within Ontario, our school board is not allowing us to leave our region. So we've signed up for the Waterloo district. And if it were today, we wouldn't be allowed to go. Now I'm hoping March is a long way away. I'm hoping things will change, but you know, that's Waterloo, let alone Texas. I wonder what the other school boards are saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are certainly well aware of that. I will say that it's different across the Ontario, across all the school boards. There are some school boards that are like, yes, good, everything's a go. Some are probably it's going to be okay, and some are, well, we're still in a holding pattern, but we're hoping to review things in December, January. And so we'll see how that turns out as far as changes that school boards make. I think right now, the teams have demonstrated to a very large degree. You've listened to us, how we always try to get you to register so that we can move forward. So you've done that, kudos to you. And secondly, we do understand that, you know, when it goes beyond your control, that phrase that headquarters use, then we'll have to look at things differently at that point in time. Hopefully things will ease up. And I say that as we've, you know, just heard a little bit more news about the other strain of the COVID. So we shall see. But again, Lee, we don't know. What we do know is our COVID task force meets weekly, and they meet for hours on end, and they're analyzing everything that they can to try to help us plan better, but also monitor what all the school boards and local health and governments are thinking.
Hey, John, there's a couple of questions in chat from Peter from 7509. One of them is, what is the likelihood that future Worlds would only be in Houston? Detroit canceled not just here, but onward. And the second one is, given the COVID situation, why not consider a Canadian championship for teams reluctant to travel to the southern US?
Well, lots of good points there, Peter. Let's just try to go down that list, and I'll remind me if I forget one, okay? Yeah, if I leave
Sure.
one. So one was, will there be 2 world champs a year from now? the plan is yes, from what I know. And I did, in a, how do I say it, a wise way today, I asked headquarters if they could give me the dates for the 2023 World Champs. So I did get those dates. And so I know when we would have our district champs, when the Detroit ones would be, and when the Houston ones would be in 2023. So that's not to say it's 100% confirmed. I'm just saying to you that we're digging to get as much information as we can well in advance. I don't see any evidence of any behind the scenes attempt to try to reduce and go back to one world championship. It's logistically very hard to do. One might think about the cost and so on. And, you know, it's almost, I smile a bit when I hear that question, because if you go back 5 years ago, people were very concerned about splitting the world champs into two. And here we've got two, and we've come accustomed to just across the river there in Detroit to have our world championship. So we'll see. But that's a long-winded answer to right now, everything that points to there would be two world champs in 2023. And Paul, there's one more point.
Yeah, so Peter also, do you know what it is?
Sorry?
Peter says, given the COVID situation, why not consider a Canadian championship for teams reluctant to travel to the southern US?
So Peter, when COVID first hit, we were running around brainstorming behind the scenes how we could have a Canadian Open Championship in 2019 and a half. That year that COVID hit, and we tried to look at June, July, August. And then in 2020, 21, we're starting to think about it again, and then everything fell apart. So this year, if we have an opportunity to do something, potentially we would do something. You're saying Canadian Open Champ, provinces still might have problems going inter-province, we don't know. But definitely it's on the radar, and for sure it's in the notes, Peter. So it's something that we'll be looking at. And I think, you know, Mr. Ellis is on the call tonight. So for sure he's heard that, and it's just another one of those key things we'll add to the planning team. Very good questions though. Other questions from the boss, Paul?
That's it for questions from the chat that I can see.
Okay. Rolling right along. Okay, so district events. I want to just give you some information about the events to try to reassure you that I think the planning is moving forward quite quickly as far as the details for the different events, and I'm going to share that with you tonight. We do realize that we've only given you bits and pieces here and there, so we're going to give you quite a bit right now. You know, today is the November 30th payment date. I just want to make a comment that if there's any lingering teams out there that haven't actually made that payment, one of the things that helps First Canada, if you're in a school, for example, and your admin, you just couldn't get a hold of the admin at a certain point in time, or the check wasn't created for the payment, a simple email from your administrator telling us that they are committing the funds for registration, that gives us enough to say to headquarters, yes, put Lee Awad's kit on the truck to come up to Canada. I'm just gonna wait for the agenda to go up there a little bit more. Thanks again, William, for all that you're doing there. So registrations, I know you could probably assume some of this information from looking online, but I thought I'd give it to you in one snapshot. It's that currently it looks like all the events are going to run. And I mean that as of current numbers from today and or 121 teams. So let's say 10 teams drop out for some reason. It still doesn't mean the events won't run. It just depends if those 10 teams were at one event, then we have a problem. So we'd have to wait and see what happens there. There are so many bits and pieces for me to share with you tonight that I'm going to just do the best that I can to make sure I communicate them to you. For example, robot pits when you go to tournaments. As we talk about the judging in a few minutes, one of the things you're going to realize is we're going to encourage you not to worry about coming in with the big glamorous robot pits. Your focus should be coming to the event to compete, to get your robots ready, to do what you need to do in those pits. That's not to say you can't do what you want to do regarding that in the pits if you wanted to do some extra stuff, but the judges will not be judging your pits. I just want to be very clear about that. Judges will not be engaging our teams in the pits. So judges will be observing. You will see judges here and there. They're going to be match observers. So there'll be some judges sitting at the floor side watching the event and looking at your robots. And that helps them better understand if you really are the robot that deserves a quality award. Those that have said, hey, my robot can do this in autonomous and so on, does it really do that in autonomous? So they'll be able to watch those key pieces and gather evidence for the judging. I have a snapshot I took of the event enrollment right now. So if you look across there on that little chart, and I apologize for the small font on there, it doesn't matter what happens this year. None of the events are going to go beyond 18 teams. So even though some of the venues could hold 40 teams without any trouble, it's 18 teams maximum. The only movement could possibly be going down, or if it's a low enrollment, it going up, but it wouldn't surpass 18 teams. So what that means is if you look at row 3, that yellow row in that chart, you'll see how many teams are registered for the event. And in row 4, it'll tell you how many spots are open. So obviously subtract one row from the other, it's a total of 18. And it tells you what the difference is. So the key here for any of you who are strategizing, oh my, should I move an event or should I do this or do that? First of all, any request to move or to go into another event or to add an additional day or to come from another country into a Canadian Ontario event, it's going to have to be requested through headquarters and then ultimately come to William and I, and then we will work with the teams to get you where you need to be in your different events. What I can say, the potential movement that might happen in the events is if you look at, say, let's just pick North Bay. Where's North Bay? Okay, North Bay Day 2 says 10 teams. We would like to see a minimum of about 14 teams in that event. So we will work with other teams to try to convince them to attend that as an additional play event, or perhaps to move from another venue, just to try to balance things out a little bit more. So when you look across that spectrum from weeks 1 through week 6, you should notice that week 5 has 3 events in week 5. And the other key piece for those that are used to seeing Durham in week 1, it is in week 5 this year. Okay, William, if we could move down, scroll down some more. All right, thank you. So rather than showing you the whole schedule, because it still is a little bit rough and in draft form, I thought I would just do it text-based instead of a spreadsheet here. So the key message this year is come ready to play. So obviously, I know that's the key message every year, but this year probably even more so. And I'm going to reiterate the point around inspection. There will be some information coming out about a pre-inspection of sorts, which our district key role lead, Henko, will be leading that piece and trying to give more information out to teams on how could you do the pre-inspection to ensure that when you do get inspected at the event, it's going to be what's called a rapid inspection. That would give an opportunity to, inspect as many teams as quick as possible. Do understand that there's a real important piece around inspection, besides the part about GP and fairness and all that, is that it's critically important for you because there's been a few times over the last 15 years where a team might not have been, or an inspection might not have caught something here in Ontario. You go to the World Championships and the inspector there catches it and then really comes down hard on you. So we don't want that to happen. So be sure to pay attention to those inspection rules and guidelines. You'll hear a lot more about that with the events this year, more so than any other year, because the goal of our event days for these competitions is to give you as much playing time as possible. The only way to do that is to try to minimize everything else that's happening at the event. And now, of course, the hope is, I didn't write it down here, but each team is going to get 9 matches for qualifying rounds. So day 0 is the day before the event. On day 0, it's totally optional to load the night before. So we're trying to minimize travel. We're trying to minimize overnight stays. And so it doesn't make sense if we were to say, oh, load in is the night before and you can't load in the next morning. So it's optional, and it's going to be approximately 5 to 8 p.m. I know some teams have asked me for details so that they could plan buses already. We'll give you more of those details soon. You're going to see the actual calendar come out on the headquarters website with the actual details for each event. But they're going to be very almost identical, except for the days when a particular event happens. And on the night before, if you do load robots in, it gives us an opportunity to inspect your robot in advance. It gives you an opportunity, or us an opportunity, and you to perhaps do some calibration or connections to the field. Those are open-ended comments. We'll see what happens, and that'll be up to our FTAs once we get to that point. But the goal would be get everybody ready as quick as possible so we have no delays and we get right to the matches when the matches start on the day 1. So on day 1, or day 1 and day 2 are almost identical, right? So there's going to be, the venue's going to open, teams are going to come in, there's a load in for the remaining teams. So let's just say, I don't know, in a perfect world, 18 divided by 2 is 9. 9 loaded in the night before and 9 the next morning. It breaks up the workload evenly, and it makes it probably easier to manage and ensures more success. That's not to say 18 teams couldn't load in the night before. We're fine with that too, but we just don't want to put pressure on anybody. Once the teams load in, you're gonna have access to your robots right away. You're obviously going to, well, barring what the inspectors say about that piece. So I should be careful not to say you can just start doing what you need to do right away. There'll be a very brief drivers meeting preceded by a virtual drivers meeting before the event. So there will be all the teams in a particular event will be called to, for example, a Zoom drivers meeting. Our referee and FTAs will go over some key details, and there'll be just some overall macro reminders the morning of the event to try to help get things going as quick as possible. I can't tell you 100% for sure right now about practice matches. We are planning to try to give teams a practice match in the morning. I'm not 100% sure about that at this point. Each time we give you something more, we have to take away. So when you look at the idea of, do you want 10 matches? If we didn't have any practice matches, could we have 10 matches? So we'll see as we get closer what we're able to do. But that, again, speaks back to the point about come ready to play as best as possible. I'll just pause, give William a moment to catch up there. And Paul, please don't hesitate to stop me if there's questions in there, or if anybody just wants to speak up, we're good with that. You scroll down further, William. There we go. So key note here, the way the qualification matches are going to go is we're going to have 1 or 2 matches per team. So you're going to play a match, have whatever time in between that one and the next match, maybe play another one, and then you're going to have a break. It could be like a 20 or 30-minute break. So you're going to have these chunks of 3 or 4 half-hour breaks throughout the day. With that said, those are the times that you could create the opportunities to eat lunch. And yes, our volunteers are going to have to rotate when they're going to eat and what the eating is going to look like, and so on. But what that does mean is you're going to have more opportunity to pause, fix something on your robot if you need to fix it on the robot. We know that that's very important for all of you. No quarterfinals. When we go into the elimination rounds, it's going to be semis going directly to finals with 12 teams. award ceremonies will be very short. There will only be a couple things that we can talk about at those award ceremonies because, as you may know by now, the awards between the 2 days are going to be shared for that one event. So if you participate only on Saturday at a particular event and you don't play on Sunday or vice versa, you're in that pool of those 2 days of teams. So basically it's 36 teams sharing one pool of awards. So how do we manage that? And how do you manage that as a team? So prior to the event, you will be sent interviews for judging. That's going to come out. I don't know when it's going to come out, but you get it well in advance. We're working with the judges now on all the details with that. And then at the event, judges will be watching and observing, basically not stopping you to talk to you and to get you to tell them something fascinating about your robot. However, during those interviews, that's an opportunity for you to go crazy, bragging about all the great stuff that you do, your team does, all the outreach, how fantastic your robot is, and why you deserve to be this, and this. How do we celebrate the awards then? So First Canada Live, the Tuesday following each event, will be kind of like the awards galas we've had in the past couple of years due to COVID. We'll have virtual awards, and we'll be announcing the winners of those awards. There's pros and cons to everything, of course, but one of the things that is fantastic about this model is that you will be considered in this group of awards, but the whole FRC community, even beyond Ontario, could be global, could be watching to see who wins what awards. So the audience is much larger, and your family and all of your family members and friends that may not be able to be at the competition, which is very likely that they won't be allowed there. But then how do you share in that experience with them? They can be part of that award ceremony too by watching. So then we're hoping the pits are going to close somewhere around 6 p.m. in terms of the teams that are done for the day. They're going to move out. The other teams that are coming in for day two will load in. Hopefully some of the teams that, if anybody gets eliminated early, we'll ask them of their GP to work as diligently as possible to get their pit shut down, so that when it is time for the pits to open for the teams to come in for day two, that pit would be more readily available. What if you're playing back to back? What if you're playing Saturday and Sunday or Friday and Saturday at the events? You would be allowed to stay in your pit during the load in, load out that evening and have a few extra hours on your robot. Again, we're trying to do everything we can to give you as much access time to that robot. And then again, we start the repeat process like we did at the night before day one, which is teams have the option to load in at night. They may not load in. They might load in the next morning. Again, it's optional. And then we repeat that process. So I've said a lot about the schedules. I wonder if pausing right now would be good. I don't know if there's any questions in the question box.
Yes, we do have a question from Janlin 771. So to clarify, all judge interviews, specifically entrepreneurship chairmen will be virtual on the same day. Maybe Janlin, if you want to unmute, does that mean, are you asking will both days be judged on the same day? I'm not super clear on it.
That is what it sounds like, Paul. What she's asking, I can't give you a definitive answer on that, but I can tell you that Artie will be sending out the details on the guidelines around what that looks like. My understanding is for each team, there would be 2 likely interviews during the week before your event. So perhaps 2 different groups of judges. So we're going to give you, we're going to try to create for you, like the 5 tips or 10 tips for virtual interviewing in FRC for this year. And that's just to try to give teams that aren't sure what to do and how to prepare, that these are the things that you could do. But again, in no way are we trying to steer you towards doing those things. If you think about FTC, that has run virtual pits in the past. You could look up some of those videos from the past, and we might include in that tips sheet a link or two to some type of video recordings of those pits. But I'm not sure if any do exist. But again, we're going to make sure we've got you covered and give you as much information as possible. I can tell you the virtual judging piece is proving to be an enormous workload for the judges. I know they cram their work at the events, you know, when you see them around trying to figure out and deliberate and come back and talk to the teams and all of that. Now the judges have to be on task throughout the week before the event, at the event, and then participating potentially in the first Canada Live on the Tuesday night.
That's it for questions in the chat, John.
Okay, thanks. So again, optional load in later that evening, and we hope to be out of there between 8 and 9 p.m. that night. Those teams that do one day at an event, obviously, once you're done your event, getting your robot and leaving to go to the other event, so you know, go back to your school, go back to your build space so that you could work on that robot, that's 100% up to you. I don't have the details right now regarding how we're going to monitor the inspection on who's bringing what in between each day. You know, what's your 50-pound capacity or 40-pound capacity that you're bringing in of caught parts or whatever. Those details will come out from our inspectors. So look at that. I've already covered the awards and the judging piece there. So let's just open it wide open for questions. We'll try to answer those questions. And also any suggestions that you have, because again, this is new for us. We're doing the best we can, and we just want to make it the best experience possible. Wow, no questions? I see the chat. Okay.
Just a little side announcement here. Some of you have already signed up for our coding cooperation, which is part of our weekly mentor sessions. I just put a link to our game manual. It'll take place next Monday, and everyone, it's a completely open competition for educational purposes to onboard people into the process of Java programming for robots in FRC. And please feel most welcome to sign up and participate. We'll share everyone's code and learn therefrom in a fun game, which is slightly serious and slightly not so serious.
Paul, do you want to mention anything about the EveryBot builds, just very briefly?
So we're going to expand on our EveryBot build from the last time we could do it. Again, Team 118 is going to work with us. They're going to produce the EveryBot, but they're going to work with us along the way. And once they've produced their robot, their CAD plans, code, bill of materials, we think about the last week of January, we're going to hold some quick builds for interested teams over 2 days on a weekend, probably in at least 2 locations. And we're expecting it to be popular because a lot of the teams have said the same thing, which is that they've lost a lot of experienced students, and pretty much what they're left with is inexperienced students, and this may be a way to help them with that. And obviously we hope that everybody is going to build their EveryBot and then test it out and drive it and modify it. That's the goal. So from William, the last weekend of January, we are hoping that we'll be able to do the EveryBot build at Humber College, and perhaps even in Kingston as well. But we do have some other questions, John. Number one is from Christina from teams 914 and 4343. is there a limit on the number of team members that can go to the event?
See, now what a terrific question. So it's really the same answer as the last time we talked to you. Nothing new on that. We haven't moved our capacity restrictions yet. So depending on the event, so for example, Vic Park would be more restricted than say Durham. So Durham is a much more spacious. The capacities for any public gathering is larger. So if we take that number, cut it by half, because right now our restrictions are 50%, it would be 500 to 600 people. And we've got all of our numbers for volunteers, team members, mentors, that all fit into those categories based around the factor of 18. So we know that we're going to be able to do that without any problem. If the capacities go up because the COVID goes down, then it's going to just get better and better. And we will inform you that you can bring more people, but we will have a cutoff date too. That was one of the key pieces, which, and I don't know what the cutoff date is, but I'm going to make a note of it. So let's call it a capacity cutoff date. That will be where, let's say 2 weeks before the event, Doug Ford says, yeah, everything's good. Ontario's wide open, 100% capacity everywhere. What do we do? So we're still going to restrict. We won't make a change after that point in time as it gets closer to the event. But if it happened before the 2 weeks, then we would, and again, don't hold me to 2 weeks. We'll have to come out with the actual date for you, but we will make those adjustments going forward. You can be the barometer just looking around you as the in your community, that if it's getting better, you know, capacities are probably going to get better. A team that's going to go to Durham, for example, probably your team capacity is somewhere between 20 to 25 people. And we're not saying, you know, 20 students and 3 adults. We're saying total people representing your team. So if you are bringing 5 parents, you can bring 5 parents, but they have to be listed. They're going to have to be COVID cleared, just follow all the processes, but they're going to all total up to equal your capacity amount. We're not going to be able to necessarily swap off that, oh, Paul's team brought 5 people less, I'm going to let William's team bring 5 people more. That wouldn't be equitable to all the other teams. But what we could do is, if somebody knows that they're only bringing 6 people to an event or something like that, the sooner we'd know about that, then maybe on the next day of the event we could open. I don't know, but we'll see. Again, we're willing to do whatever we can.
So a related question to that comes from Brennan. So he has some other things, but I thought I'd bring this one because it was related to that. When should teams expect detailed COVID guidelines for events?
Another really good question. I meant to share with you some documents at the beginning there when I talked about the COVID protocols. We've got, my goodness, I don't know, Paul or Christine or William, if you can remind me, I don't know, 35 pages of guidelines now, 40 pages of guidelines that covers everything you could think of. And of course, those are, let's call it stringent guidelines at this point in time. And they're meant to be that way so that they could be eased going forward if conditions allow for it. So in a nutshell, if the question is, will our events be safe? 100% they're going to be as safe as they can be, and as safe as any other event that's going to be out there or public gathering.
Okay, that's great. So Brennan's first question was related to scouting. He says, are there any updates to AV related, any updates to AV related upgrades for scouting purposes?
We're still working on that. We've got actually a few different proposals that have been brought forward by our district key role leads to try to enhance the viewership from those that are watching virtually. But I would suggest, Brennan, I know how you've been involved in the past. Anybody who's got suggestions on what you think would make it easier for you, that is something that we could employ. We're happy to look at doing that. Right now, I don't have any specifics for you other than we're just looking at quality of upgrade packages that we're working on to try to make sure that we offer the best viewing experience.
Okay, and there's a comment from Peter from 7509, and he says, we have a Romy and we're driving it around the other day and it's using the Java FRC VS Code system. So that's a Romy. That's what Peter's talking about. And you can use the driver station. You program it the exact same way you program the big robot. Obviously, there's nothing on top of it as a means to teaching students how to code in Java for, I guess it's also potentially a lab view, but I haven't seen that. And now if you are a lead coach mentor 1 or 2 in your dashboard, you will see that there's a Thinkscape button. And when you click on Thinkscape there, it lets you into a series of lessons on how to use the Romy, how to code it and so forth if you're doing that. So it's a great tool. I think this is why Peter's using it, to teach his students without having a whole bunch of big FRC robots around to learn how to code. And obviously someone could take that home and code it. So the Romy robot is something that people are using.
Paul, I'm gonna ask the audience a poll. 3 questions that will actually help inform William a little bit. And William doesn't know this is even happening right now. So I'm gonna ask you a question and I'll give you like 5 seconds to answer. And I only want you to answer by putting your thumbs up. All right, so the audience. So who uses LabVIEW to program their robots, FRC robots? I don't know, Paul, if you can see all the people attending there.
Pretty much. I see
Okay.
1 thumb.
All right.
It's 1 so far.
I'm going to ask another one. How many people use C++, plus, or any form of C? Okay. Oh.
3.
And how many people use Java? Okay. And how many people use something else?
We used Python for like 2 years.
Yeah, or combinations, I guess. Yeah. Well, that was pretty interesting, William. Pretty telltale sign there.
John,
to see about the C++. Yeah. Yes,
Grantley has his hand up. I think he has a question or a comment.
Okay.
Go ahead, Grantley.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't. That was just my hand up.
Oh,
for-
you're just
I'm sorry.
replacing the whole hand instead of a thumb. That's fine. John can relate because he always puts his hand up and never remembers to take it down at meetings. So just
I have a quick question just about the capacity limits. Is there any indication that the provincial championship will have capacity limits, or actually Houston? Although that one I doubt for Houston that they've said anything. But thoughts about provincials?
Yeah, good question, Matt. Nothing has changed from when we talked last time, which is the good news, which means that there actually really isn't going to be capacity restrictions for district champs. We don't think so anyway, because we've never had that building more than half full. And it will, I think the stands has 5,000 seats in it, and we're actually going there tomorrow. So we can make sure we double check on that while we're there doing a walk around in plans for the district champs. Still same as before, 80 teams. So now when you think about district champs, how critical that is, and Peter asked earlier about a Canadian Open if we weren't going to Worlds. We know that our community values our district champs, so we're really going to make it the best it can be, as we always do. But 80 teams going down to 17 to go to the World Championships, right? That's quite a reduction in teams. That said, the one thing I will tell you we are sort of planning on doing, if you think about the pits, so we have 2 full ice rinks of pits, so to be similar, but in order to try to space things out a bit and accommodate robot crates. So those of you that have moved around robot crates in the past, you'll know, like, gosh, I remember going to Hershey Center, going on a Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon with my pickup truck or rental vehicle from the school, running it over, getting the guy in the forklift to take it off and go put the robot crate somewhere. And then you had to wait for it to come to your pits, just like we do at Worlds and all that. So hopefully this year, your robot crates are gonna go right to your pit. And we're gonna take your pits and spread your pits out 4 feet between the next pit. And your robot crate's gonna sit there facing into your pit, and the other teams will face into the other pit. That is going to allow us to space teams out distance-wise and also give you the convenience of your robot crate and also make it very quick at the end of the event to load the crate back up if you're going to go to the World Championships or you're just going to take the robot home. So back to your question, Matt, no changes to the capacities currently. Everything's totally normal at district champs at this point.
Great, thank you.
If I could say one thing about Matt's other part or Houston, when we were in St. Louis, teams rarely brought a lot of students with them. And then once we went to Detroit, a little bit unexpectedly, because I was getting these ribbons that said Canada to go on your badges.
Yes, yes.
There were so many more people coming that it was actually a surprise. So if you've only been to Detroit or if you've only been involved with FIRST, well, we had one of the events in Detroit, the anticipation is that you wouldn't probably be able to afford to bring everybody that's on your team. So that's something that you need to sort of consider.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like going back to the old days, Atlanta, for example, and as Paul said, St. Louis, if you're flying down there and your hotels and how many team members, you're easily, it's $30,000. Back in those days, we were spending $25,000 to $28,000 on the large end, but we did have a fairly big team that we took down there too.
So I know you mentioned a few like sort of logistics ideas for the robots, and you're saying HQ might be able to try to work something out with flights. But have you guys discussed basically chartering a convoy of buses for a certain number of people per team from Ontario in order to facilitate getting them to Houston rather than every team having to organize it themselves?
Yes, we're looking at any ideas. That is one of them that we've talked about, not in detail, but the question that comes up is, okay, so COVID's the issue and confined space is the issue. So, you know, do we want to put two teams of kids on one bus?
Right.
But if you think about it, like, I don't know, is it better if you're two teams within a school board? Does that make more sense? Because now it's easier on the logistical hurdles from school board permission, right? That they're both going on the one bus. You don't have to get two separate school board permissions because you're from the same board. So that makes a lot of sense to start to plan that way if you can. And honestly, some people might be taking skeleton crews. So you could theoretically put 3 teams on one bus if you're putting 12 kids per team, or 12 people. And that's not an out of the question number of team members to go to the World Championships. I would bet you, I don't know, like between 14 to 24 is the average probably who goes to Worlds.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We've
Depending on your resources.
before as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if Brantley's forgot to take his hand down or if he wants to ask a question. Okay. So I see with you know, the teams that are on this call right now, there must be some tough questions that you have. See if you can stump us on something here. I don't know. We want to do the best that we can. There must be something we haven't thought of that you would like us to get an answer for you for if we can't do it tonight. Good. Good. Well, if there aren't any more specific questions, I just wonder if there just anything particular anyone wants to share, any good news stories about what's going on. Is there anybody that I'm surprised, I don't want to bring it up, but no questions about refunds and all that kind of stuff, you know? What you should know, I guess, on that front is that as you might have realized before, when Ontario made their policy on refunds, we said January 8th, right after the end of kickoff day, and headquarters had made it whenever you, as long as you didn't open your kit. So they've now changed their policy in alignment with Ontario. So that's a good thing, I guess. Paul, have we looked at any kickoff issues or kit apart shipment in terms of?
The only issue we have at this point is someone that's thinking of joining us, John. And they haven't done they've still got a my site thing, but I would just remind people, if they are having someone else pick up their kit, to contact me if you don't already have a form to do a surrogate letter that has to go to headquarters and to us to get in contact, so that you can do that. I know that someone's going from Ottawa to pick up some kits in Kingston, I believe. And someone's coming from Sudbury to pick up a couple as well for the teams on Manitoulin Island, but that's as far as I know. So if that's something that you're considering, please let us know as soon as possible.
Paul, I have another single question poll to take of the audience that'll help us. Can you give us a thumbs up if you did not opt out of the kit aparts or the drive base? So if you're expecting to get a drive base, put your thumbs up, please. How many do we see? 2, 3? Okay. All right. Thank you for that. That's helpful.
And I put the link to the surrogate letter because people are asking, but it's there as well.
Good point. So just a reminder of the invite to come onto a committee to help us plan better for the Houston Champs. And perhaps one of those pieces, even if you don't come on the committee, if you want to send an email to William or myself regarding, here's an idea. I don't want to be on the committee, but here's an idea. Or here's something that might help people. For example, who participated in the last couple of years to be judged virtually for any of your awards, and what did you feel you did really well that helped you be successful with that award? And let's share that back out to the community, sharing our best practices, right? There's going to be a lot of teams that, if you think about it, last year there was 85 teams, and those teams only participated in some awards. Not, I don't know how many did all the awards, but very few, I think. But going into this year, there's going to be a lot of teams that have no idea how to present themselves virtually. So how could we help the broader community?
Good question there from Peter. John. Studica is being considered our local Anti-Mark supplier. Can the $450 Anti-Mark opt-out be used with Studica?
Typically it is. Those are the credits for it. We will make sure we get that information back out to you on what those dates are. Paul, what's the name for that again, though? It's the
drive chassis opt-out.
No, I know, but the credits.
First choice. Oh, first choice is not a.
Not first choice.
Not
I can't remember. I'll just say credits from Studica. When can that be used?
Oh, so there's some comments in the chat that yes, someone has contacted Derek and they've confirmed that the value of the product voucher, whatever the D is for, is $550 Canadian dollars.
Okay, good to know.
Andy Mark voucher, Roland says. Thank you, Roland. It's tough getting old, Roland, forgetting your nouns. Like I just did. Okay, I don't have any more new information. I'm happy to stay on a little bit longer just to chin wag a bit. If anybody wants to just chat about anything, we're wide open for that. Otherwise, you're going to be having a lot more longer nights, so take the time in front of you, and I hope everybody well, and thanks for participating. I'm going to stay on for a bit, and if you want to chat, let's chat. Oh,
John and Paul, I think there is one more question in there that
Oh.
hasn't been answered from Dave.
Dave.
Who should we reach out to about potentially joining another event?
I didn't see that. Yes, that would
You-
be John.
Like a third or fourth play or fifth play or sixth play. Yes, it's unlimited. You could play as many events as you want, which actually, when you think about it, makes this year pretty exciting, right? You would contact me. So what will happen is you'll say you want to get into this event. I will either ask you to send me another email that's more official requesting that, or I will then take that email, tell headquarters, we want to move you into an event. There are some events that are waitlist. So for example, if a team drops an event, let's say Durham, for example. Durham's a pretty popular event, right? So if a team drops out of that event, if there's somebody on the wait list, they don't automatically go in, right? That's going to be a process that's going to be handled between headquarters and us on how we move teams into the event. Right now, the restrictions are based on how we can best balance the need of the team wanting into the event with the balancing of the events itself. One thing you should know, if you look at the teams close enough, you'll see that at one of the events, there's 3 American teams coming, and another event, there's, I think, 2 American teams coming to that event. And yes, those teams will have to follow the strict COVID protocols that we have to follow.
Yeah, so Peter has a question, but Peter, just reach out to Derek. It's the same thing when the Andy Mark vouchers is being honored by Studica. There's not a Studica voucher named that, but reach out to Derek, and if possible, it sounds like you want to pick up whatever your product is, or Matthew, whatever your product is, when you get your kit of parts at Studica on the 8th of January. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I reach out to Derek, and I don't think Derek's going to be there necessarily, is it, John? As far as you know, but he can have that stuff ready for you to pick up, I think.
Yes. You know, I don't know. I'm going to put my team hat on. If I was on this call or planning ahead for the season, and you know that myself and Paul and William and Christine and Dave, we don't know the game, what the game is this year. We don't know what the game pieces are, but I might be inclined to say, hey, I'm going to keep a $100 credit with Studica or something like that, and tell them I want to buy one of the game pieces. I want to be in line to buy a game piece. So what happens is when you look at the inventory of resources that are available to you, whether it's the game piece or back in the old days when we remember the Bosch gearbox issue and all that kind of stuff, if you were you know, if you blinked for a day or two and then you try to get some of those supplies, are going to be gone, right? So with the supply chain issues this year, I would be more inclined to be as proactive as I can to try to secure pieces. So if I could buy something in advance, I might put some credit down for that. I don't know if you should do that, but it just makes a lot of sense to me.
Things that make you go,
I remember, no, you know, what year, the 2015, the one with the moat and overcoming the gate and the water drawbridge and all that stuff, shooting the castle. Those great were $40 each, and you couldn't get them anywhere. And that was the main game piece. And what did you get in your kit? One. So there's an example of what I mean, right? It wouldn't hurt my team to put a $50 credit down and say, hey, I want to be in line for a game piece. Just a tip or a thought there. Okay. William, anything else you need to share out with the group, or Christine, Paul?
I think that's the thing for now. I'm sure we'll have some more updates this week.
Excellent. Well, good stuff. Looking forward to more of those programming sessions there, William.
Great. Thank you.
And again, thanks everybody for attending. I hope we've answered some of your questions, and you don't have to wait for these types of community meetings. You can always just send us an email and we'll tell you what we know when you ask us. And we're very transparent and we share everything that we can out to the community. Anyway, take care. All the best for a fantastic Christmas, and I guess we'll see you at kickoff. That's just
Looking
around.
forward to it.
Wow. 5 weeks,
Very
right?
much, everyone.
Holy mackerel.
Time flies.
40 days.
40 days.
8 days.
It's time to start building that arc.
I was just
If you're in BC.
Yes.
That's-
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
that's too bad.
poor BC people, right?
Poor BC.
My
Yeah.
goodness. We're on a call with BC today, and I was saying to the fellow from BC, "What's wrong with your screen?" And it was like, "It's all the rain coming down," and the background is not nice. So anyway, thanks again, Paul William, for helping out, and Christine, thanks for keeping an eye on that chat box for us. And everybody, take care.
You
Thanks.
well. Be good.
Thank you very much and take care.
Okay, I'll be in touch there, Matt.
Sure. Thank you. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye now.